Hello, English learners. Welcome to the Best English Podcast. I'm your host, Sophia, and I'm so happy you've chosen to spend some time with me today. Have you ever felt that you understand English? You can read it, you can understand movies with subtitles, but when it's time to speak, the words just don't come out? It's like there's a wall between the English in your head and the English that comes out of your mouth. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know that you're in exactly the right place. This podcast is designed for people just like you, intermediate learners at the B1 or B2 level who are ready to break down that wall. We believe in a simple but powerful idea. Listen more, speak better, and grow faster. Today, we're not going to study boring grammar rules from a textbook. Instead, we're going to dive into stories, explore real-life situations, and listen to English as it's truly spoken. So, find a comfortable spot, maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee, and let's begin this journey together. And if you want to make this a regular part of your learning routine, make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way, you'll never miss an opportunity to improve your English with us. Let's start with a thought. Think about the last time you tried something new. Maybe it was learning to cook a new dish, trying a new exercise, or even starting a new job. How did it feel at the beginning? It probably felt a little awkward, a bit difficult, right? You might have made a few mistakes. Perhaps you added too much salt to the food, or you couldn't do the exercise perfectly. This is a completely normal part of the learning process. It's the same with learning a language. Every time you listen, every time you try to speak, you are taking a step forward on a long and exciting journey. I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine named Alex. Alex was a graphic designer, and he was brilliant at his job. He could create the most beautiful images on his computer. But he had a secret dream. He wanted to be a painter, not a digital painter, but a traditional painter, with brushes, canvases, and real paint. For years, he kept this dream to himself. He would buy books about painting, watch videos of famous artists, and visit art galleries. He knew everything about theory, the color wheel, composition, perspective. He could talk about it for hours. But he had one problem. He was terrified to actually start painting. He told me once, "Sophia, I have this perfect image in my head of the first painting I want to create. It's a beautiful sunset over the ocean. But I'm scared that if I try to paint it, it will look terrible. It won't match the perfect picture in my mind, and I'll feel like a failure." His fear of not being perfect was holding him back. In English, we have an expression for this: paralysis by analysis. It means you think so much about a problem that you never actually take any action to solve it. Alex was stuck in paralysis by analysis. He was analyzing everything about painting, but never actually painting. Have you ever felt that way about speaking English? You know the grammar rules, you have the vocabulary in your head, but the fear of making a mistake, the fear of not sounding perfect, stops you from speaking. It's a very common feeling. But just like Alex, you have to take that first step, even if it's a small one. One day, I gave Alex a small gift. It wasn't a large, expensive canvas. It was a tiny sketchbook about the size of my hand and a single pencil. I told him, "Alex, forget about the perfect sunset. For 1 week, I just want you to draw one small circle in this book every day. That's it. Just a circle." He laughed. He thought it was a silly idea, but he agreed to do it. The first day, he drew a wobbly, imperfect circle. The second day, The circle was a little bit rounder. By the end of the week, he was drawing almost perfect circles without even thinking about it. The next week, I told him to draw a square every day, then a triangle. Slowly, very slowly, he was building a habit. He wasn't thinking about creating a masterpiece. He was just focusing on one small, simple action each day. This approach is about breaking down a huge, scary goal into tiny, manageable steps. The goal of becoming a fluent English speaker can feel enormous, overwhelming even. It's like Alex's goal of painting a masterpiece. But what if you broke it down? What if your goal for today was just to listen to this podcast for 10 minutes? Or to learn one new phrase you hear me say? That feels much more achievable, doesn't it? Let's pause for a moment and try this. A phrase Alex had to learn was to get over the hump. When you get over the hump, it means you get past the most difficult part of a task. For Alex, the biggest hump was starting. For many English learners, the hump is starting a conversation. Can you say that phrase out loud? Get over the hump. Try it in a sentence. I need to get over the hump and start speaking English with my colleagues. Once you get over that initial difficulty, things often become much easier. After a few weeks of drawing simple shapes, something amazing happened to Alex. He started enjoying the process. He wasn't worried about the result anymore. He was just enjoying the feeling of the pencil on the paper. One Saturday, he went out and bought a small set of watercolor paints. He didn't buy a big canvas. He just started painting simple shapes and colors in his little sketchbook. His first paintings weren't masterpieces. They weren't the perfect sunset he had imagined, but they were his. He had created something. He had finally gotten over the hump. This story about Alex reminds me of another person I met a few years ago. Her name was Maria, and she came from a small village in Brazil. She moved to London for work, and her English was at a very basic level. She was a nurse, a very caring and compassionate person, but she struggled to communicate with her patients and colleagues. She felt isolated and frustrated. Her dream was to feel comfortable in her new home, to make friends, and to be the best nurse she could be. But the language barrier felt like a huge mountain she couldn't climb. Maria worked long hours at the hospital, so she didn't have much time for traditional English classes. She tried using apps on her phone, but she would get bored and lose motivation. She felt like she was getting nowhere. In English, when you feel like you're making no progress, you can say you are spinning your wheels. It's like a car stuck in mud. The wheels are turning and turning, but the car isn't moving forward. Maria felt like she was spinning her wheels. One day, an older patient at the hospital, a kind gentleman named Mr. Henderson, noticed Maria's struggle. He was a retired English teacher, and he saw her determination. He told her, "Maria, my dear, don't try to learn the entire language at once. That's like trying to eat a whole elephant in one bite. You have to do it one piece at a time." He gave her a simple task. He said, "Every day I want you to learn just one new word. But you must truly learn it. Learn what it means, how to pronounce it, and how to use it in a sentence. Then, you must use that word at least 3 times during your day." So, Maria started. Her first word was relieved. She learned it means feeling happy because something unpleasant has not happened or has ended. She practiced saying it, relieved. Then she planned her sentences. When a patient's temperature went down, she said, "Oh, I'm so relieved." When she finished a difficult task, she told a colleague, I'm relieved that's over. When she finally got home after a long shift, she said to herself, I'm relieved to be home. She did this every single day. The next day, her word was efficient, then patient, then grateful. Each day, she added one new brick to her wall of vocabulary. It was slow, just like Alex drawing his circles. But it was progress. She wasn't spinning her wheels anymore. She was moving forward, one word at a time. This method is sometimes called the one-a-day method. It's incredibly powerful because it focuses on consistency over intensity. It's better to do a little bit every day than to study for 5 hours one day and then do nothing for 2 weeks. Consistency builds habits, and habits lead to long-term success. Let's try one now, just like Maria did. Our word for this moment is consistent. C-O-N-S-I-S-T-E-N-T. Consistent. It means acting or doing something in the same way over time, especially so as to be fair or accurate. Being consistent in your studies is very important. Now, take a moment. Can you think of a sentence using the word consistent? Maybe something like, to learn English well, you need to be consistent with your practice. Say it out loud. Now, your challenge for today is to use the word consistent 3 times in your conversations, or even just in your thoughts. After a few months, Maria's colleagues started to notice a change. She was more confident. She was starting conversations. She could understand jokes and even make some of her own. She was no longer the quiet, shy nurse. She was becoming a vital part of the team. Mr. Henderson's advice had worked. By focusing on one small piece at a time, she was slowly but surely conquering the mountain of English. Maria's journey wasn't just about learning words, though. It was about connection. By learning the language, she was learning about the culture. She started watching British TV shows, not just to practice listening, but because she was genuinely interested in the stories. She started reading local newspapers. She joined a book club. Each new activity opened up a new world for her. This brings up a really important point about language learning. It's not just about memorizing vocabulary and grammar. It's about connecting with people and culture. Think about why you want to learn English. Is it for a job, for travel, to watch movies without subtitles? Whatever your reason, at its heart, it's about connection. Connecting with new ideas, new people, and new experiences. Let's think about that for a second. What is your why? Why are you on this journey? Knowing your motivation can be incredibly powerful, especially on days when you feel tired or discouraged. For Maria, her why was to connect with her patients and be a better nurse. For Alex, his why was to express the creativity he felt inside him. Having a strong why is like having a compass. It keeps you pointed in the right direction, even when the path is difficult. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I spent months studying grammar books. I could conjugate all the verbs. I knew all the rules for masculine and feminine nouns. But when I went to Spain, I could barely order a coffee. I was so focused on being correct that I was afraid to speak. My why at that time was just to pass an exam. It wasn't a very inspiring reason. Then I made a friend named Javier. He didn't speak any English. We communicated with a lot of gestures, a dictionary, and a lot of laughter. I wanted to understand his stories about his family, his jokes, his dreams. Suddenly, my why changed. I wanted to learn Spanish to connect with my friend. And that changed everything. I stopped worrying about making mistakes. I just wanted to communicate. My Spanish improved faster in a few weeks with Javier than it had in months of studying books. This is the power of immersion and connection. And that's what we try to do in this podcast. We immerse you in stories and ideas, helping you connect with the language in a more natural, human way. Let's go back to Alex for a moment. After months of painting in his small sketchbook, he finally felt ready to try a larger canvas. He set it up in his small apartment. He mixed his paints, and he began to paint the sunset over the ocean that he had dreamed of for so long. It took him weeks. He would paint a little bit every evening after work. Some days he felt inspired. Other days he felt frustrated and wanted to give up. We all have those days, don't we? When you feel like you're not making any progress. When this happens, it's important to be kind to yourself. When you're in a rut, it means you're stuck in a routine that has become boring and unproductive. It's okay to feel in a rut sometimes. The important thing is to find a way to get out of it. For Alex, when he felt stuck, he would go for a walk by the river or visit an art gallery to get inspired again. For an English learner, maybe it means watching your favorite English movie again, or listening to a song you love, or calling a friend who is also learning. It's about finding something to reignite that spark of motivation. To reignite the spark means to bring back a feeling of excitement or interest. What do you do to reignite your spark for learning English? Take a moment to think about it. Maybe it's watching an interview with an actor you admire. Or perhaps it's reading a chapter of a book that you can't put down. Finding your personal source of motivation is key. Finally, the day came when Alex's painting was finished. He stepped back and looked at it. Was it perfect? Number. It wasn't exactly like the image he had in his head all those years ago. It was different. It had its own character, its own flaws, and its own beauty. But it was real. He had done it. The feeling of accomplishment was incredible. It was so much better than the fear he had felt for so long. He invited me over to see it. I was amazed. It was a beautiful painting, full of emotion and color. But I wasn't just amazed by the painting. I was amazed by the change in Alex. He was more confident, more open, more alive. He had not just learned to paint. He had learned to overcome his fear. He learned that the journey, the process of creating, was more important than the perfect result. And this is the secret that both Alex and Maria discovered. And it's a secret I want to share with you today. The goal is not to speak perfect English. There is no such thing. Even native speakers make mistakes. The goal is to communicate, to connect, to express your ideas, your feelings, and your personality. Every time you speak, even with mistakes, you are succeeding. You are building a bridge between your mind and another person's mind. That is a magical thing. Let's talk a little more about this idea of perfection. The pressure to be perfect can be a huge obstacle in language learning. It makes us hesitant. We wait until we know the perfect way to say something, and often, by the time we figure it out, the moment has passed. I want to encourage you to embrace imperfection. Think of it as work in progress. Your English is a work in progress, and that's a beautiful thing. It means it's growing and evolving every day. Let's try a little exercise. I'm going to give you a situation, and I want you to just say the first thing that comes to your mind in English. Don't worry about grammar or perfect vocabulary. Just communicate the idea. Ready? Situation 1. You are in a cafe. You want to order a coffee with milk, but no sugar. What do you say? Go on, say it out loud. Maybe you said, coffee, milk, no sugar, please. Or maybe, "Can I have a coffee with milk? No sugar." Or perhaps, "I'd like one coffee with milk and without sugar." All of these are great. The barista would understand you perfectly. You communicated your message. That is success. Let's try another one. Situation 2. You meet someone for the first time at a party. You want to ask them what they do for work. What do you say? Say it out loud. Perhaps you said, "What's your job?" Or "What do you do?" Or "Where do you work?" Again, all of these work perfectly. You don't need a long, complex sentence. Simple and direct is often best. The point of this exercise is to build your fluency and confidence. Fluency isn't about using big words, it's about being able to communicate your ideas smoothly without too many pauses or hesitations. And the only way to build that fluency is by practicing, by speaking, even if you're just speaking to yourself. This reminds me of another story, this time about a young man named Kenji from Japan. Kenji was an engineer who was transferred to his company's office in San Francisco. His technical English was excellent. He could read complex engineering documents and write detailed reports. But he was incredibly shy and found speaking very difficult, especially in social situations. At lunch with his colleagues, he would usually just sit and listen, smiling and nodding. He wanted to join the conversation, to share his ideas, but he was always searching for the perfect words, the perfect sentence. Kenji felt like he was living behind a glass wall. He could see and hear everything happening around him, but he couldn't connect. He missed his friends and family back in Japan, and he was starting to feel very lonely. One evening, he was watching an old American movie. In the movie, a character was practicing a big speech in front of a mirror. An idea sparked in Kenji's mind. The next morning, while getting ready for work, he stood in front of his bathroom mirror and tried to describe his plans for the day. At first, it felt very strange. He stammered and paused a lot. He said things like, "Today, I go to work. I will, have meeting with team. We talk about new project." It was simple, broken English. But he was speaking. He decided to make this his new habit, just like Maria's 1 word a day. Every morning, he would talk to himself in the mirror for 5 minutes. He talked about his day, his thoughts, his hobbies. He described the weather outside his window. He pretended he was talking to a friend. There's a great phrase for what Kenji was doing: "Fake it till you make it." This expression means to pretend to be confident or capable in a certain area until you actually become confident and capable. Kenji was faking being a confident speaker in the privacy of his own bathroom, and it started to work. By speaking out loud, his mouth and tongue got used to forming English sounds. He started to notice which words were difficult for him to pronounce and practiced them over and over. He also started to think in English more naturally. He wasn't translating from Japanese in his head so much anymore. The connection between his brain and his mouth was getting stronger. After a few weeks of his mirror practice, something happened at work. During a team meeting, his boss asked a difficult question about the new project. Everyone was quiet. Kenji knew the answer. In the past, he would have stayed silent, too afraid to speak. But this time, something was different. He had been practicing. He took a deep breath and he spoke. He explained his idea clearly and concisely. His colleagues looked at him, surprised and impressed. His boss nodded and said, "That's a great point, Kenji." Let's explore that further. For Kenji, it was a huge moment. He had broken through the glass wall. It was like a light had been switched on. From that day on, he started speaking up more in meetings. He started joining the conversations at lunch. He even started making jokes. He was still Kenji, the brilliant engineer, but now his colleagues could see his personality too. Kenji's story shows us the power of active practice. Listening is incredibly important, and it's the foundation of everything. That's why you're here listening to this podcast. But listening must be combined with speaking. You have to activate the language you are learning. Kenji's mirror technique is a fantastic way to do this if you don't have someone to practice with. Let's try it right now. I want you to describe what you are doing at this very moment. Don't worry if it sounds silly. Just speak. I'll go first as an example. Right now, I am sitting in a chair in my studio. I am speaking into a microphone. I can see my computer screen in front of me. Now it's your turn. What are you doing? Describe it out loud. Go ahead. Did you do it? It might feel a bit strange at first, but the more you do it, the more natural it will become. You can do this anytime. When you are cooking, describe what you are doing. I am chopping an onion. Now I am heating some oil in a pan. When you are walking down the street, describe what you see. I see a tall building. A red car is driving by. A woman is walking her dog. This is a powerful way to make English a part of your daily life. You are turning your life into your classroom. These 3 stories, Alex, Maria, and Kenji, all show us something different but equally important about the learning journey. Alex teaches us that we must overcome the fear of imperfection and just start, even with small, simple steps. Breaking down a big goal makes it achievable. Maria teaches us the power of consistency. A little bit of effort every single day adds up to massive progress over time. And Kenji teaches us the importance of active practice. We must activate the language we are learning by speaking, even if it's just to ourselves. All of their journeys involved a key moment of decision, a moment where they decided to stop thinking and start doing. They decided to take the plunge. This idiom, to take the plunge, means to decide to do something important or difficult, especially after thinking about it for a long time. Alex took the plunge when he started drawing circles. Maria took the plunge when she committed to learning 1 word a day. Kenji took the plunge when he started talking to his reflection in the mirror. So, what about you? Are you ready to take the plunge? What is one small action you can commit to doing consistently to improve your English? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Maybe it's listening to 5 minutes of this podcast every day on your way to work. Maybe it's learning 1 new word a day, like Maria. Or maybe it's talking to yourself in the mirror for 2 minutes every morning, like Kenji. Whatever you choose, the important thing is to start. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Every step you take, no matter how small, is a victory. Celebrate those small wins. When you successfully use a new word in a conversation, give yourself a mental high five. When you understand a difficult part of a podcast, acknowledge your achievement. This positive reinforcement will help you stay motivated. Now, let's shift our focus a little bit. We've talked about mindset and habits. Let's talk about the practical side of listening. How can you get the most out of listening to a podcast like this one? There are 2 main ways to listen: passive listening and active listening. Passive listening is when you have the podcast on in the background while you are doing something else, like cleaning the house, driving, or working out. This is still very beneficial. You are exposing your brain to the sounds, rhythms, and patterns of English. You are getting used to the flow of the language. It's like soaking a sponge in water. Even without squeezing it, the sponge absorbs the water. So, passive listening is a great way to increase your exposure to English. However, to really accelerate your learning, you need to engage in active listening. Active listening is when you give your full attention to what you are hearing. You are not just hearing the words, you are thinking about them. You're trying to understand the meaning, the context, and the nuances. Let me give you some strategies for active listening. The first time you listen to an episode, just listen. Don't worry about understanding every single word. The goal is to get the general idea, the main points of the story. This is called listening for gist. After you've listened once, think about it. Could you summarize the main story? What happened to Alex? What was Maria's problem? How did Kenji solve his problem? Then, listen a second time. This time, have a notebook ready. When you hear a new word or a phrase you find interesting, pause the podcast and write it down. Try to write down the whole sentence you heard it in. The context is very important. It helps you understand how the word is used. For example, if you just write down plunge, you might not remember what it means. But if you write, he decided to take the plunge and start his own business, the meaning becomes much clearer. After you have your list of new words and phrases, you can look them up in a dictionary. But don't stop there. The next step is to make them your own. Try to write your own sentences using the new vocabulary. This is a crucial step. It moves the word from your passive vocabulary, words you understand, to your active vocabulary, words you can use. Another powerful active listening technique is shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen and speak at the same time. You repeat what you hear the speaker saying, trying to copy their pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as closely as possible. It can be difficult at first, and you might feel a bit silly, but it's one of the most effective ways to improve your accent and fluency. You can start by shadowing just one sentence. Pause the podcast and try to repeat the sentence exactly as I said it. Let's try one. I'll say a sentence, and then I'll leave a pause for you to repeat it. Ready? Consistency is more important than intensity when learning a new language. Now you try. How did that feel? Let's try another one, a bit longer. Alex discovered that the journey of creating was more valuable than the perfect final result. Your turn. You can do this with the entire podcast. You might not keep up perfectly, and that's okay. The goal is to train your mouth to make the sounds of English and your brain to process the language in real time. Let's imagine a different kind of journey now. A physical journey. Think about a time you traveled to a new place, a city or country you had never visited before. What did you do to prepare? You probably looked at a map. A map gives you an overview. It shows you where the major landmarks are, how the streets are connected. Listening for gist, the first step in active listening, is like looking at the map. It gives you the general layout of the conversation or story. Then, once you arrive in the new city, you start to explore. You might choose to visit a specific museum or walk down a particular street. This is like listening a second time for details, picking out specific words and phrases you want to learn. You are zooming in on a specific part of the map. Finally, imagine you decide you want to live in this city. You need to learn how to navigate the streets on your own without the map. You start walking the routes yourself, maybe getting lost a few times until you can get around confidently. This is like shadowing or creating your own sentences. You are internalizing the language, making it your own, so you can use it to navigate conversations. This analogy helps us see that learning is a process of exploration and discovery. It's not about memorizing a list of rules, it's about exploring a new world. And just like any exploration, there will be challenges. You might get lost, you might misunderstand something, but you will also discover beautiful new things. You'll have moments of surprise and delight when you suddenly understand a joke or are able to express a complex idea. Let's talk about another common challenge: feeling shy or embarrassed. This is a huge barrier for many learners. I want to tell you a short story about a woman named Chloe. Chloe was from France and moved to Ireland for a job in the tech industry. Her English was quite good, but she had a very strong French accent. She was extremely self-conscious about it. She believed that everyone was judging her pronunciation and thinking her English was bad. A person who is self-conscious is someone who is excessively aware of their appearance or manner. They worry too much about what other people think of them. Chloe was very self-conscious about her accent. Because of this, she rarely spoke in meetings, even when she had valuable ideas. She avoided social events with her colleagues. Like Kenji, she was living behind a glass wall, but her wall was built by her own insecurity. One day, her manager, a friendly Irish woman named Siobhan, asked to speak with her. Chloe was terrified. She thought she was in trouble. But Siobhan just smiled and said, "Chloe, you're doing fantastic work. Your reports are always so insightful, but I get the feeling we're only seeing about 50% of what you're capable of. I'd love to hear more of your ideas in our team discussions." Chloe was so surprised that she was honest. She told Siobhan about her fear of speaking, her embarrassment about her accent. Siobhan listened patiently and then said something that completely changed Chloe's perspective. She said, "Chloe, I love your accent. It tells a story. It tells me you're bilingual, that you have the courage to live and work in a different country and a different language. Your accent is not a sign of bad English. It's a sign of bravery." This was a watershed moment for Chloe. A watershed moment is a turning point, an event or period that marks a very important change. Siobhan's words were a watershed moment for her. She had always seen her accent as a negative thing, a weakness, but now she was being told it was a sign of strength. From that day on, Chloe made a conscious effort to change her mindset. When she spoke, instead of thinking, "Oh no, they can hear my terrible accent," she tried to think, "They can hear that I am brave. They can hear my story." It wasn't easy, and she still felt nervous sometimes, but her mindset shift made a huge difference. She started to contribute more in meetings. She went for lunch with her colleagues. She discovered that people were not judging her accent at all. They were interested in her ideas. They were happy to be her friend. Her accent was just a part of who she was, like her hair color or her height. This is such an important lesson for all of us. Your accent is part of your identity. It tells the story of where you come from. The goal is not to lose your accent. The goal is to be clear and understandable. As long as people can understand you, your accent is perfectly fine. In fact, in a globalized world, being exposed to different accents is a wonderful thing. It makes life more interesting. So, if you are self-conscious about your accent, I want you to think of Chloe. Your accent is not a weakness. It is a sign of your courage. Embrace it. Be proud of the journey you're on. Now, I want to bring all these ideas together. We have the stories of Alex, the artist who was afraid to start, Maria, the nurse who learned the power of consistency, Kenji, the engineer who practiced in the mirror, and Chloe, the programmer who learned to embrace her accent. Each of them faced a different obstacle, but they all found a way to move forward. They all learned that the journey of learning is not a straight line. It has ups and downs. There are moments of frustration and moments of joy. Let's think about your own journey. What is your biggest obstacle right now? Is it the fear of making mistakes, like Alex? Is it a lack of time and motivation, like Maria initially felt? Is it a lack of opportunity to practice speaking, like Kenji? Or is it shyness and insecurity about your accent, like Chloe? Identifying your main challenge is the first step to overcoming it. Once you know what the problem is, you can start to find a solution. If your problem is fear, your solution is to start small. If your problem is a lack of time, your solution is to build a small, consistent habit. If your problem is a lack of practice, your solution is to find creative ways to speak, even to yourself. And if your problem is insecurity, your solution is to change your mindset and be kind to yourself. Remember, every person you hear speaking English fluently was once a beginner. Everyone has gone through the same struggles you are facing now. They made mistakes. They felt embarrassed. They wanted to give up at times. The difference is that they kept going. They were persistent. Persistent is another great word for us today. Persistent. It means continuing firmly or obstinately in a course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. All the people in our stories were persistent. They faced their challenges and kept moving forward. Let's practice using it. Think of something in your life you have been persistent about. Maybe it was finishing a difficult project at work or learning a musical instrument. You could say, I was persistent and I finally learned how to play the guitar. Now, try to make your own sentence with persistent. Say it out loud. So, we've walked alongside Alex, Maria, Kenji, and Chloe. We've seen them face their fears, build habits, find their voices, and embrace their identities. Their stories teach us that the path to fluency is paved with small, consistent steps and a healthy dose of self-compassion. It's about progress, not perfection. But there's another crucial element to this journey, another ingredient that can transform the experience from a difficult chore into a delightful adventure. That ingredient is curiosity, and its close friend, play. Think about how children learn their first language. Do they sit down with grammar books and vocabulary lists? Do they worry about making mistakes? Of course not. They learn through playing, through exploring, through an insatiable curiosity about the world around them. They touch everything. They ask, why? 100 times a day, and they experiment with sounds and words without any fear of being wrong. As adults, we often forget this natural, joyful way of learning. We approach language learning as a serious, academic subject. We think we have to work hard, to study, to memorize. And while discipline is important, we often leave out the fun. I want to introduce you to someone else. His name is Leo. Leo was a university student studying computer science. He was logical, intelligent, and very good at subjects that had clear rules, like math and coding. But English was his enemy. He had been studying it in school for over 10 years, but he hated it. It felt messy, full of exceptions and strange rules. He found the classes boring, the textbooks dry, and the grammar exercises pointless. He could pass his exams, but he couldn't have a simple conversation. The language felt cold and lifeless to him. He was going through the motions, which means doing something without real interest or enthusiasm. Leo was just going through the motions of learning English. His university offered a chance to study abroad for a semester in Canada. It was an incredible opportunity for his computer science career. But there was one condition. He had to pass a more advanced English proficiency test. Suddenly, English was no longer just a boring subject. It was a gatekeeper, a barrier standing between him and his dream. He knew his old way of studying wasn't going to work. He couldn't just memorize more rules. He needed to actually learn to use the language. Feeling desperate, he tried everything. He downloaded new apps, bought new textbooks, and even tried listening to news podcasts. But nothing worked. He was still bored, and he still felt no connection to the language. He was about to give up on his dream of going to Canada. In English, you might say he was at his wit's end, meaning he was so worried and frustrated that he didn't know what to do next. One evening, Leo was relaxing by playing his favorite online video game. It was a fantasy game where players from all over the world team up to go on adventures, fight monsters, and complete quests. Leo was part of a team, or a guild, with players from Germany, Sweden, South Korea, and the United States. They usually communicated with very simple, pre-written commands within the game. But that night, their team was facing a very difficult challenge. They needed a complex strategy to succeed, and the simple commands weren't enough. One of the American players started typing quickly in the chat box, explaining a plan in English. Leo's heart sank. He could only understand a few words: attack, defend, magic. The rest was a blur. His team was failing the challenge because he couldn't understand. Frustrated, he opened an online translator and frantically started typing in the phrases he was seeing. Flank the boss from the left. Use your healing spell after the big explosion. Don't stand in the fire. Slowly, phrase by phrase, he began to understand the strategy. He started typing back, using simple English he learned from the translator. Okay, I go left. I heal now. It was clumsy. His grammar was terrible. But it worked. They started to coordinate, and after a long, difficult battle, they won. In the celebration that followed, the American player typed, "Leo, great job. You really got the hang of it at the end." To get the hang of something means to learn how to do something, to acquire the skill. Leo looked at that sentence. He didn't just translate it, he felt it. He had gotten the hang of it. For the first time, English wasn't just a set of rules in a book, it was a tool. It was a way to connect with people, to achieve a goal, to have fun. That night was a turning point for Leo, his watershed moment. He realized that he had learned more English in 1 hour of playing a game than he had in months of studying. Why? Because it was meaningful, it was necessary, and most importantly, it was fun. He wasn't studying English, he was using English to do something he loved. So, Leo changed his entire approach. He threw away his boring textbooks. Instead, he made the game his classroom. He started talking more in the chat. He looked up words related to the game, like armor, quest, strategy, victory. He started listening to his American and British teammates when they spoke on voice chat. At first, he could only catch a few words, but gradually, he started to understand more. His curiosity was ignited. He wanted to understand their jokes, their stories about their lives outside the game. He went from being a passive learner to an active, curious one. He started asking questions. What does LOL mean? What's an epic fail? He was learning slang, idioms, and the natural flow of conversation. He was learning the living language, not the dead language of the textbooks. This is the magic of connecting English to your passions. What do you love to do? Do you love cooking? Find a cooking show on YouTube hosted by a British or American chef. Learn the words for ingredients and techniques. Try to follow a recipe written in English. Do you love fashion? Follow fashion bloggers on Instagram and read their posts. Learn the vocabulary for different styles and fabrics. Do you love sports? Watch a match with English commentary. Listen to podcasts where they analyze the game. Let's take a moment for you to think about this. What is one hobby or interest that you are passionate about? Now, think of one way you could connect that hobby to English. Could you find a website, a podcast, a community of people online? Committing to this one small change can completely transform your learning experience, just as it did for Leo. You stop studying and start doing. Leo's story also shows us the power of curiosity. He started to go down the rabbit hole. This is a wonderful idiom that comes from the book Alice in Wonderland. It means to get so interested in a topic that you spend a long time finding out more and more about it. Leo would hear a new word in the game, look it up, and that would lead him to another word, then an article, then a video. He was exploring the language based on his own interests. This is something you can do right now with this podcast. Maybe you heard me use a phrase like at his wit's end. Don't just learn the definition. Be curious. Where does it come from? Can you find other examples of it being used? A quick search might tell you that wit is an old word for intelligence or knowledge. So, to be at your wit's end means you've used up all your ideas. This deeper understanding makes the phrase more memorable and more interesting. It turns learning into a treasure hunt. Of course, Leo's English wasn't perfect. He made lots of mistakes. But in the gaming community, nobody cared. They were all there to have fun and play the game. This created a low-pressure environment where he felt safe to experiment and to fail. This is incredibly important. Finding a safe space to practice is key. It could be with a patient friend, a language exchange partner, or even just talking to yourself like Kenji did. The goal is to practice speaking without the fear of judgment. A few months later, Leo took his English proficiency test again. He was nervous, but this time it was different. When the speaking part of the exam began, the examiner asked him about his hobbies. Leo's face lit up. He started talking about his online game, his international friends, the strategies they developed, the funny moments they shared. He wasn't thinking about grammar. He was telling a story he was passionate about. His English flowed naturally, full of energy and enthusiasm. Needless to say, he passed the test with flying colors. The phrase, with flying colors, means to do something very successfully. He got his spot in the study abroad program. But more than that, he had discovered a secret. Learning doesn't have to be a chore. It can be an adventure. He found his why not in a career goal, but in the joy of connection and play. Leo's story connects beautifully with a theory in language learning developed by a linguist named Stephen Krashen. One of his key ideas is called the Comprehensible Input Hypothesis. That sounds very academic, but the idea behind it is very simple and intuitive. It states that we learn a language best when we receive messages that we can understand. This is the input. But, and this is the important part, this input should be just a little bit beyond our current level of competence. Think of it like this. Imagine you are learning to play tennis. If you play against a complete beginner who can't even hit the ball, you won't get any better. It's too easy. Now, imagine you play against a world champion like Serena Williams or Roger Federer. They will hit the ball so fast and so accurately that you won't be able to return a single shot. You'll just be frustrated. It's too hard. The best way to improve is to play with someone who is slightly better than you. You'll have to stretch and run and really focus to return their shots. You won't win every point, but you'll be able to play. You'll be challenged. This is the sweet spot for learning. It's the same with English. If you only listen to things that are very easy for you, you won't learn much that's new. If you try to listen to something extremely difficult, like a university lecture on quantum physics, you'll probably just get frustrated and give up. The key is to find material that is comprehensible. You can understand most of it, but that also contains some new words, new phrases, and new structures that challenge you. It's like reaching for a slightly higher branch on a tree. You have to stretch, but it's within your reach. This podcast is designed to be exactly that for B1 and B2 learners. You should be able to understand the main stories and ideas, but you'll also hear new vocabulary and idioms like at his wit's end or with flying colors that stretch you a little. This idea of comprehensible input is why watching children's cartoons can be so effective for beginners. The language is simple, the context is clear from the pictures, and there's a lot of repetition. But as an intermediate learner, you need something more. You need stories with more complex themes, conversations that are more natural. You need to find your own just right material. I remember a woman I met at a workshop. Her name was Sarah, and she was a single mother to her 8-year-old son, Tom. Sarah needed to improve her English for a promotion at work, but she was exhausted. Between her job and taking care of Tom, she had almost no time or energy to study. She felt stuck between her desire to improve and the reality of her busy life. She felt like she was burning the candle at both ends. An idiom that means working too hard, from early in the morning to late at night. She tried to study after Tom went to bed, but she would often just fall asleep on her textbook. She felt guilty and frustrated. One evening, Tom asked if they could watch his favorite animated movie in English instead of their native language. Sarah was hesitant. She thought it would be too difficult for him, and she was too tired to translate. But Tom insisted. So, they put on the movie in English with English subtitles. Something magical happened. Because Tom had already seen the movie dozens of times, he knew the story perfectly. He knew what the characters were feeling and what was about to happen. The story provided the context. The images provided the clues. And together they were able to follow along. When a character sang a song, Tom tried to sing along, copying the sounds he heard. When a funny character said a silly phrase, Tom would laugh and repeat it. Sarah watched her son, and she had a realization. Tom wasn't studying, he was having fun. He was absorbing the language naturally, just by enjoying a story he loved. She realized this was something they could do together. It wasn't study time that she had to find after a long day. It was their cuddle time on the sofa, their movie night. They made it a new ritual. Every Friday night was English movie night. They would watch movies they both knew and loved. Sarah found that she was learning just as much as Tom. She started to notice patterns in the grammar. She would hear a phrase in a movie, like, "Don't worry about it," and then she would hear it again in another movie. The repetition helped it stick in her mind. She was learning through massive amounts of comprehensible input, and she was doing it in a relaxed, happy state of mind. This is so important. When you are stressed or anxious, your brain is less receptive to learning. When you are relaxed and happy, your brain is like a sponge. Sarah had found a way to combine her goal of learning English with her most important value, spending quality time with her son. She didn't have to choose. She could do both at the same time. After a few months, her colleagues at work started to notice a change. Sarah seemed more confident in meetings. She would volunteer to write emails to international clients. Her listening skills had improved dramatically from watching all those movies. One day, her boss called her in and offered her the promotion she had been hoping for. She had achieved her goal, not by studying harder, but by finding a smarter, more joyful way to learn. So, the stories of Leo and Sarah add two more powerful ideas to our collection. From Leo, we learn to connect English to our passions and to let our curiosity guide us. From Sarah, we learn to find comprehensible, enjoyable input that fits into our real lives. We learn that learning can be a shared, joyful experience, not a lonely struggle. Think about it. We have Alex, who used his passion for art. We have Maria, who was driven by her passion for caring for her patients. We have Kenji, who wanted to connect with his colleagues. We have Chloe, who found pride in her work. And we have Leo, who used his love for gaming. And Sarah, who used her love for her son and their time together. Do you see the common thread? They all linked English to something that mattered to them. They found a personal, meaningful reason to learn. The language was no longer just a subject in a book. It became a bridge to their dreams, their hobbies, their relationships, and their goals. So, as we wrap up our conversation today, I want you to reflect on your own journey. We've talked about so much. We've talked about starting small, being consistent, speaking even when you're scared, and embracing your accent. We've talked about turning learning into a game, following your curiosity, and finding input that is just right for you. It might seem like a lot to remember, but it all comes down to one simple idea. Find what works for you. There is no one-size-fits-all method for learning a language. We are all different. We have different personalities, different goals, different interests, and different amounts of time. Don't try to force yourself to use a method that you hate just because someone told you it was the best way. The best way is the way that you can stick with. The best way is the way that keeps your motivation alive. Your English learning journey is like a long road trip. You are the driver. You get to choose the car, you get to choose the music, and you get to choose which interesting places to stop along the way. I am just here as a friendly guide, pointing out some interesting sites and suggesting some possible routes. But you are in control, so be an explorer, be a curious adventurer, try new things. If listening to podcasts works for you, great. If you prefer to learn by reading books, wonderful. If you learn best by talking to people, find opportunities to do that. If you learn best by playing video games, go for it. Mix and match. Create your own personal learning system. The most important thing is to keep moving forward. Some days you will travel a long distance. Other days you might only move a few feet. You might even have to pull over for a rest. That's all part of the journey. The only thing that matters is that you don't turn back. You keep your eyes on the horizon, on the person you want to become, a confident, comfortable, and capable English speaker. You already have everything you need to succeed. You have the ability, you have the desire, and now you have a collection of stories and strategies to inspire you. Remember Alex and his first small circle. Remember Maria and her one word a day. Remember Kenji and his mirror. Remember Chloe and her brave voice. Remember Leo and his game. And remember Sarah and her movie nights with her son. They are all proof that this journey is possible. Thank you once again for spending your valuable time with me, Sophia, on the Best English Podcast. I truly hope that our time together has given you not just some new English phrases, but a new perspective, a renewed sense of motivation, and the confidence to take the next step on your unique and wonderful journey. If you enjoyed this extended session and want to continue making English a part of your life, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We have so many more stories to share and so much more to explore together. Until next time, be curious, be brave, and find the joy in your learning. Goodbye for now.